And that brings us to the problem with peer production is the following. And this is the key problem that we have. Individual problem and a collective problem. The individual problem is the following. Peer production is sustainable on a collective level, but not on an individual level. Why collective level? Because as long as you can win 10% new people for every 10% you lose, you know, Linux and Wikipedia are sustainable. There's no problem about it. But if you want to do passionate production for free, you can't do it for too many years, yeah, because you have to feed your family, right? So that's the problem. So we need mechanisms in society which we actually don't have to smoothen this kind of social value creation. And this is also, you know, what I call the partner state model. So in Europe, we have something called transitional labor market policies, protect the worker, not the job, which consider that today workers, you know, go from one job to another, and then they have black holes in between. And so to smoothen the path, we've really been inventive in inventing all kinds of mechanisms in Europe to do that. So we need an addendum, which is even when people are not working for money, they're actually creating value. So what do we do about that? Yeah. How do we grease that mechanism? And that's the collective problem. So more and more innovation is being created socially. We create positive externalizations of the sharing and commons economy. This value is captured by for-profit companies. And there are two problems. First of all, there's no return. Yeah, YouTube, how many $1 billion did they get? But none of the producers of the actual value got anything out of it. Yeah, so this is one problem. The second problem is that only a tiny percentage of social value is being captured in money. So we have a post-capitalist mode of production, a post-monetary forms of exchange, and only a small part of it is monetizable. This is a big problem on the long term. Yeah, it's a problem, a crisis of value and a crisis of accumulation of capital that we are going to have if this continues. And therefore, we need to find social mechanisms that answer this kind of problem. All right. So I don't know how much time I have left.
As long as you want.
As long as I want. Okay.
But we're in front of 35 minutes.
Okay. I'm actually pretty much said what I wanted to say. I just want to end with a political summary, and then we can just talk and have a conversation. So what we see now is an emerging social movement around peer production, governance, and property. It has three forms. Yeah, if you want to produce in that way, you need input. So you need open and free raw material. So in every social field, we now see the emergence of open and free movements fighting for openness. Free software, open access, open content, open educational resources movement. Open Reiki, open yoga, open Ayurveda, against private appropriation of yoga moves. You know, they're being patented by an American yoga master, Chaudhuri. You know, and patenting 3,000-year-old yoga moves and getting away with it. So we have an open yoga movement fighting against this, right? That's how the free software movement started, because Richard Stallman saw that his software was being taken by somebody else who put a copyright on it. That's how he started it. So it's a defensive mechanism of the communities against private appropriation of the commonly created value. Then you have the process itself, which is participatory, and so we have this move towards participatory design of production processes, lowering the threshold, etc., etc. And then you put it in a common pool, so we have legal and institutional forms, commons-oriented and sharing-oriented licenses, which create open and free raw material, right? So we have open and free movements, participatory movements, and commons-oriented movements emerging in every social domain. If you want to know more about it, go to my wiki, p2pfoundation.net, and you'll find 3,000 pages of entries of those emerging movements and practices and ideas, etc. Okay, so we also have an emerging domain of struggle. Yeah, and usually if something new comes out, you have three ways of reacting to it. And I would say the first is transgressive. So our young people today who do file sharing, they're transgressive. They don't care about the copyright. They just do it. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting approach because, like in Sweden, 95% of the people actually agree that this is okay. Then it's pretty hard to have a law which outlaws your granny. You know, I mean, that's a pretty heavy pressure for social change by itself. Even though as an individual, you open yourself up to the whole weight of repression of the legal apparatus because you're transgressing. So that's the kind of thing that happens in that field. The second way of change, which I think is very important, is constructive. Yeah. The Roman Empire never fell. That's, actually it never fell. It was a process of 300 years of disintegration. But while it was disintegrating, some people with a new type of consciousness, with new type of social relationships, with new type of institutions were building an alternative to Christian churches. And when Rome fell one day and burned by the Vandals, there was a social compact between the new invaders and the pre-existing churches, and that was a new society. Yeah. So the new was grown within the old. So anybody who designs a social software system is designing a new world. Everybody who uses Creative Commons and GPL is designing a new world, is designing new types of social relationships, is building the new world within the old. Yeah. And the third form will be actually changing the institutions. And this is where it's still very weak. Yeah. Today we lack a network of policymakers. We don't have that yet because it's an emerging movement. So when a very bad law is voted, like the Digital Millennium Act, there's nobody out there to actually, voice those new concerns yet. That will come. We need to work on that. Well, I kind of will conclude with this. I think I just want to give you a broad framework. There's a lot more you can say about these things, of course. But this kind of gives you an idea of the approach, which I think, is kind of an attempt to reframe an emancipatory tradition in our world that's not an industrial mode, and that can actually speak to the concerns of young people today and use a language that can be understood, and gives us a way forward in actually creating a sustainable, not perfect, but a sustainable world where cooperation and social innovation can thrive. Thank you very much.